Hi everybody, it's Rob from Glas Data here, and today I'm going to show you how to set up webhooks so that you can send data from out of Glas Data into any other system that has an API. So just a kind of bit of advance warning, this demo is going to be quite technical. I'm going to be talking about some kind of quite technical things. So unless you are a developer or if you are kind of into webhooks and APIs, then this probably isn't the video for you. Also, I'm going to be going over a bunch of things to do with our real-time alert system, which I've covered in other videos, and I'm going to be going over them very quickly. So if you come across something in this video that you're not quite sure what it is, do check out our other real-time alert videos, and hopefully all will make sense. So I'm in my demo account today, and as you can see, I've got 3 different topics, and the one I'm interested in here is the CO2 topic. So in CO2, I've got 2 assets, so 2 sensors. One's called CO2 and the other one's called CO2, nice and simply. And I'm going to look at integrating a webhook to tell me when data has arrived from the CO2 sensor. So if we look in here, we can see it's not currently active, but we're just going to pretend it is. And you can see these are the values here that we're interested in, the CO2 column. So how am I going to set up this webhook? Well, first of all, I'm going to go into our real-time alert section because the webhook is part of our real-time alerts pipeline. And if you looked at the other real-time alert videos, you'll know that alerts are just a way of setting up actions to be taken when data either comes in, so new data, or when changes occur to existing data within a reasonable time frame. So I'm going to set up a new alert here, and I'm just going to call this one webhook example. And I'm going to set this up as an asset source, but you could do either a topic or an asset source. And I'm going to say, look at the CO2 topic, the CO2 column, and the first CO2 sensor in that topic. And then I'm going to create that alert, and I'm just going to save that to start with. And then we're going to get going. Now, I could put any filters I want here, and again, if you want to see how all these filters work, you can check out the other videos on real-time alerts. But for the purposes of this tutorial, I'm just going to assume that we want all data that's coming from this with no filters. So I'm just going to straight away drag on a webhook action. So you can see we've got the new webhook action here, which is kind of this official webhook symbol, although it looks more like a boomerang, but there you go. I'm going to drag that on. And then it's going to ask you some details, and this is where we're going to get slightly technical, but hopefully not too much. Now, I'm using a tool here on the right called Bcepter. What this is it's just going to set up a fake API, and we can see the kind of messages that we're going to be sent from this webhook. So if I just create an endpoint called Glas webhook, so we now have this URL that we can play with. So I'm just going to copy that and paste it into the webhook URL. And then it's asking us for a webhook path. We're probably not going to be sending data to the root path of this API, so I'm just going to type in payload here. And then there's some other information here that I'm not going to use in this video, but I'll quickly go over what it does. So bearer token is simply a standard OAuth 2 style JSON web token. So if your API needs to be authenticated by a token, you can put that in here. This doesn't go through the whole OAuth 2 flow for you, so either you need a token which doesn't expire, or more likely you need to go and re-authenticate and then come and paste it back in here. So this actually might be something that you aren't going to use very often. You can put custom headers in here, so we actually have a header that we call xglas API key, so we can generate custom API keys for people, which give you access to very specific parts of our system. But you can put any value in here, which will be included in the headers of that. We just hit the plus button, there we go, locks it in, which will be included in the headers of that request. And then if you want to use basic auth, again, because this is going over HTTPS, it will all be encrypted, but if you want to use just basic auth, you can put that in here as well. And then some default action stuff, so the locale, the time zone, and all that kind of thing as well. So I'm just going to create this for now, and then I'm going to link it up to the CO2 assets, like so. And now you can see that we've saved it, but it says the node is not verified. Now, if I open this back up again, you can see that we have now got a verification code, which is 911840, and we also have this blue button here called verify. So if I just hit the verify button, you will see we are receiving a GET request onto payload. Now what we do is we expect this GET request to return the specific code here. And this is essentially proving that you have control over this API that you're setting up, because we don't want someone flooding data to the wrong API. We want to make sure that we are actually sending things to the right place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to modify the mocking rules here. I actually set one up earlier, so I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to create a new rule. And I'm going to say when the GET request exactly matches /payload, then the content type should be text plain /plain, and the response body needs to be this status code. So very, very simple, very, very basic response. I'm just going to save that rule. So now that when we hit the /payload endpoint, this free Bcepter tool is going to respond with that code. So if I do that again, let's hit verify. And there you go, we can see that we now have this green verified tick, and you can see the request there responded with that code. All nice and simple. Now we are ready to actually start using this. So when new data comes in, we're going to be receiving payloads here, but we can also, in order to help the development, so if you're wanting to test things, we can also just use this send sample payload button. So if I hit this, you can see that we have now received a post request on payload. So we're always going to be receiving post requests. And if we have a look at that, you can see that the body, if we view the headers, you can also see that we have this any value and foo header. Note that it's been lowercased, so it's always going to be lowercased. And also, well, actually that could be Bcepter that's lowercasing that. And if we look at the request body, and if I just make that into a nice JSON format, you can see that we have the entry ID. So this is the ID of the event that came through. So this will be, if we go back to my data, you'll see that the latest value here is called, happened on the 21st of January, and it had a value of 985. So this is the ID of that row in the table. We also have a date, so you can see 447 and 38. It's always going to be in UTC, so and we format it as an ISO 8601 date. We then have the asset ID. Now this is the actual ID of the sensor here, and again these are secure IDs, so these are unique to you. They're not going to actually relate to our database. And then we've got the asset name, which is CO2. And then we have the values. So in the values, we just have pairs of the column name and then the actual value it was. So in this case, we just got the 1, CO2, and 985. So that's all there really is to it. This webhook is now just going to throw data at this endpoint whenever new information comes into the system. And then you can do whatever you want with that information. If it detects a change in the data, so for example, if we were to change, if you receive new data and then the user suddenly changes that same piece of data, you'll be able to match it using this ID. This ID will always be the same per row on that table. I hope that makes sense. Good luck and happy coding.